Hello, 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 America. It's good to be
Morning.
with you all this Monday afternoon, East Coast time, Monday morning Pacific, and Monday really early morning Hawaii time, where our friend Jeff Bethke's back
That's
from
right.
his little time on the injured reserve list with sickness.
That's right. DL.
Nice to have you back off the DL, man.
Yep. Feels
The
good to be
whole
back.
gang
Feels like I
here.
missed a whole. And when you do a daily show, one day off feels like you missed a whole year. You know.
It's true. It's
Yeah.
true.
And then
You
you
missed
roll out-
everything, Jeff. You missed
And then you
everything.
roll into a weekend and like what?
Yeah,
that
exactly.
Time is like, whoa, what happened?
Exactly.
Everything in several days. This is so weird.
Time warp.
It's great to be with you all out there. It's also great to have this squad back together. I'm so excited to be back with you all this Monday morning. We've got a great show today. We've got a great set of friends here with Andrew Hanauer and the One America movement is going to be here introducing some new friends, Chris Hall out of Houston, and a mutual friend of Andrew Hanauer's and mine, special musical guest, Kris Carter. More on that later, and his amazing Grace from Oklahoma, born and bred. More to come on that. But to kick us off first, we got Josh Jacob. Let's hear it. House worship band leader, Josh Jacob.
All right. Thank you, John. Thanks everyone else for being here. It's good. Happy Monday. Yeah, we got a song for y'all, and I hope you like it. This is Scandal of Grace. Grace, what have you done? Murdered for me on that cross, accused in absence of wrong. My sin washed away in your blood. Too much to make sense of it all. I know that your love breaks my fall. The scandal of grace, you died in my place. My soul will live, oh, to be like, give all I have just to know you. Jesus, there's no one beside you. Forever the hope in my heart. Death, where is your sting? Your power is dead, is my sin. The cross has taught me to live. In mercy, my heart now to see. The day and his trouble shall come. I know that your strength is enough. Scandal of grace, you died in my place, so my soul will live, oh, to be like you. Give all I have just to know you. Jesus, there's no one beside you. Forever the hope in my heart. Give all I have just to know you. Jesus, there's no one beside you. Forever the hope in my heart.
That's good. That's good, man.
Thank you, Josh. All right, so I'm going to do a quick survey here. Who amongst this group feels like they really believe that what Josh was singing about and live in? I mean, if you believe it, like you're all in on that, or you like kind of wrestle with believing it.
Forever the hope in my heart.
Both.
Yeah, man.
All right, so all in for Joel, Marissa, and Calvin. Jeff and I are kind of like the both. Yeah, believe it, but also like, come on, really? Like, am I
it's
really
so good.
believing it? I don't know.
Good.
I believe it every day. How about you, Josh?
Well, when push comes to shove, I got my seasons of doubt a lot of the time, but when push comes to shove, this is the only thing you got to hold on to. So you hold on to it as tight as you can. You know?
Yep.
Well,
amen.
Season and out of season, right? The days you feel it, the days you don't.
Yeah.
That's
But
why
he
I
never
follow
changed
you
his
every day,
value,
Marissa. That's why I keep hanging out with you.
Don't go follow me. Don't follow me. But no, you know, I mean, even when you don't feel it, JK, you know, it comes back. It comes back.
No. It's not, and it's not about feeling.
Yeah.
I agree with that. It's just about the idea of like, to what extent are you really latching on to that in real time, for real, every day? And I have to say the answer is mixed for me. I mean, I know ultimately I believe it, but like experientially every day, every moment, I don't know. Open question.
JK, I can't believe you're not perfect. I can't believe it.
I'm not as perfect as you and Joel and Calvin.
I know.
Really, it's all attached to it. That's okay. Well, great. I didn't mean to open up an undue can of worms this early in the morning before Jeff Bethke. Give him a little time.
It's too early for this.
Your poor guy. I've thrown him thrown him with a curveball there, and kick it over to Joel Searby and today's Daily Dose. Joel.
All right. Hey, everybody. So it's amazing how God weaves some of this stuff together, because we're talking this week on the Daily Dose about grace and mercy and forgiveness. And I did not coordinate that with Josh. I did know that our song at the end is going to be an awesome rendition of Amazing Grace. But even, John, your setup was great, because the reality is that we can cling to it like Josh was talking about. And that's what I mean when I say, like, I believe it in the sense of like hanging on to a flagpole in a storm, that kind of belief, not that I'm going to be okay. The storm might still take me out. But in the sense of, at the end of the day, there's this idea that we all kind of know something's off when we've either wronged someone because we're messed up and we've got our own hurts and blind spots, or when we've been wronged and we know that that's just not the way it's supposed to go. And oftentimes we really want all that grace and forgiveness when we've wronged somebody else, and it's a lot harder to give it to them. And that's where some of that doubt kind of plays out, and also just in loving ourselves. And it's just this kind of toxic mess of trying to understand, how do I forgive myself so that I can forgive others? And so this week and today, I want to give just really quick practical suggestions on how we can actually tap into the idea of grace and the reality of grace in a way that would actually change the way that we interact with each other and with ourselves. I found that my own unforgiveness is oftentimes rooted in my inability to forgive myself. And so when I've wrestled with the idea of grace, it's not that I've had no doubts. It's that I've usually been really devastated by my own darkness. And I just can't believe that God actually loves me, to your point, John. And it's in those moments when it's really hard to kind of love anybody and forgive anybody. At least that's my experience. And so the three things I'd suggest today for your daily dose is this: when it comes to wrestling with grace, forgiveness, mercy, the idea that we've done something wrong, others have wronged us, and yet there's a way forward. That's like grace in motion, right? Even though things are messed up, there's a way forward. And so here's my three suggestions. Allow God's love to sink deep. If we cannot earn grace, then why would you be running after it? Just let it be. Just let God love you. Take the time that you need. It may be all day. until you really just get a sense that you've been sitting in God's presence and he loves you. That's number one. Number two, ask forgiveness from the people that you've wronged. There is just real power in just simply saying, will you please forgive me? I've wronged you. I'm sorry. And then number three, give forgiveness for those that have wronged you, coming out of this reality that God loves you. It doesn't mean it all goes away. It doesn't fix it, but there's something that covers. Grace has like this covering motion that happens when we are forgiving and being forgiven, when we're giving it and we're receiving it. And so that's my encouragement today. Let God love you. Ask forgiveness for people you've wronged, and give forgiveness that flows from his love for us. And that's your daily dose. Back to you, John.
Thank you, Joel. I have to share with everybody, this is my third daily dose of Joel today. I read his materials this morning, and just a reminder, you can get them coming into your email inbox every morning. Every day he shares a daily dose devotional. I read it in that format, Joel, and I was really impressed upon by the accepting God's grace and love, and therefore being able to share it, which I think is totally spot on. And I'm super grateful for your sharing in that format. Second time I was on a devotional call with you earlier today as well. So I'm feeling like really just filled up with Joel Searby right now, and really loving it. So thanks very much. And I like that image you provided as well of the being lashed to the mast of it all. I when it comes down to that, and knowing what our ultimate hope is, out into, the end of the story. We've read the end of the book. We've read the last chapter. We flipped to the last chapter. We know how the story ends, and it ends well. So in that regard, I'm completely on board with you and everybody else on my earlier question. So anyway, just trying to reconcile points there. Before I kick it over to Jeff Bethke. Jeff, good to have you back.
Yes, feels good. Hope you guys are doing well. Feels good to be back on the show. I missed you guys, but I did tune in on Friday just to see how it went, and it was so fun. Like you guys said, Christian, man, came for my job. Came for me right there.
He's coming for you.
I know he did. Did such a good job. I'll keep it short this morning and concise and hopefully simple, but still a thought to still chew on for today. And that's the concept of noise. And we talked about silence a couple of weeks ago, but I want to talk about the counter side of that and just how kind of damaging it is to us. But hopefully it's encouraging, and hopefully it can at least allow us to see the reality of it that I think this moment is allowing us to come out of, because this moment of being quarantined and shut in, I think, is doing something to us that we're not even aware of. And noise, what a lot of people don't realize is just how inundated we are with noise. There's this thing in our brain that psychologists kind of call our skill or our ability to sensory gate, or sensory gating. And another kind of slang term for that is the cocktail party effect. And what that is essentially that when you're at a cocktail party, when there's a ton of people around, what's really cool about our brains is they actually have the ability to tune out everything and give one thing focus. If you think about it a lot, it's actually kind of crazy that you don't just hear all of the levels of volume and noise at an even way, because that would be overwhelming, even though you should, right? Because in a party, there's so many people talking, so many things going on, you would think that would just overwhelm you. But your brain has this special skill called sensory gating, where it allows you to basically gate everything else out and focus on what you want to focus on. Now, that's a great skill to have, and it comes in handy for a lot of us in those moments in relationship and when it's noisy. But what we don't realize, and what a lot of researchers have started to find is that our sensory gating ability is itself getting overwhelmed, because we're having to block more than we ever have in all of our entire life. And there was a study in Japan that literally found there's a direct high correlation with how much your brain is sensory gating to then the correlation of chronic fatigue syndrome. So essentially, people who have to sensory gate more are essentially just deeply, deeply, deeply tired to the point where it's even chronic and clinical and medical. And there's even some other crazy studies too, like the New York Times did a fascinating, you can go Google it, fascinating article a couple of years ago about noise decibel levels in Manhattan, which of course, one of the noisiest places in the world. And things like a certain decibel ratings, that we're not supposed to hear for more than 10 or 15 minutes without almost having the impact of going deaf. But yet you go into every Manhattan restaurant and they're all registering at those levels all day, 24/7. So just the noise in our world is absurd. Our brains are having to work at an absurd level to block it out. And so my encouragement for you today is, man, might this season that has lasted months and will last more months, be a time where you actually allow that to slow down. You allow that to come down. You allow it to not be on overdrive. The sensory gating thing in our brain is almost like us in our cars just pressing the gas as fast as possible 24/7. That'll just kill the engine, right? And a lot of us are killing the engines of our brain, and we don't know why we're tired. We don't know why we're grumpy. We don't know why we're meaner to people and more upset. But a lot of times that can be it. And so the encouragement today is be aware of that, but then also ask, man, might this be a season where we can kind of reset and allow things to heal and come down and be a little softer, so that then, by the way, when we re-enter, we actually aren't as numb to the noise and actually realize just how sometimes painful and hurtful it is, so that we can be more thoughtful or sit in spiritual moments and understand them more. So that's an easy, basic thought for today, but something I was chewing on this weekend I want to pass on to you guys. So that's something to chew on for today.
That's really
so good.
Intense observation, Jeff, and completely in line with my own sense about the season for so many of us. I organized I told you guys on Friday, organized a fantasy baseball prayer call on Saturday. That was my sixth day of getting folks organized for a prayer time, and it was fantastic having these guys from all around the country sharing their experiences. And for some of them, we all have so many different experiences and all that. Some experiences are really terrible for people. We know that. Some experiences for certain people are probably most of us are kind of lumped in the middle. It's hard, but it's not awful. It's just hard to figure out. And then for some people, they're really just managing to fully embrace it. I was really, really surprised and encouraged by some of my friends hearing about exactly how much they felt they were personally thriving during this period. One guy, a very successful and well-traveled litigation attorney, I should say. And he was saying, like, look, I've been thinking for many years, I'm going too fast. I'm flying too many places. I'm on the road all the time. I really need a sabbatical. He said, this is not exactly the sabbatical I would have chosen, but nevertheless was embracing it that way, and almost that same sort of brain rest way that you're talking about, I think, Jeff. So thanks so much for giving us that framework to think about it in. Okay, shifting gears now, we're going to go to WOW. So that's happening, and some good news about money flows from the government to all of us to keep things tidied over until times get better, and some states reopening and all that. Over to you, my friend Calvin.
Yes, sir. All right. What's up, everyone? It is wonderful to be with you all as we begin the week together. And today, I wanted to share a few stories of how after weeks and weeks of quarantining and social distancing, things are starting to feel like they're getting back on track. So, as John said, for the past few weeks, we have kept you updated on the status of the Payment Protection Program, which ran dry a couple weeks ago. Well, President Trump signed the latest $484 billion coronavirus stimulus bill into law last Friday, which means that the Payment Protection Program is reopening today. So this is fantastic news, and I think we're all very excited for the money to get into the hands of those who really need it. So if you're a small business owner or an independent contractor, we encourage you to reach out to your local bank and apply for financial assistance. Also today, some businesses in a handful of states, including Minnesota, Montana, and Georgia, are reopening, but they will have to alter layouts, sanitation procedures, and service methods to adjust to the new reality of life during Corona. While some businesses are having a harder time enforcing these new safety measures, others have found a way. Places like Waffle House will reopen in Georgia today with more distance seating arrangements, enhanced sanitizing protocols, and masks on all employees. Waffle House CEO Walt Amer believes it is important to adapt and reopen because perhaps by doing so, a bit of hope and normalcy can be restored for some folks. So we wish Waffle House and all other businesses working hard to reopen our very best, and our prayers are with you all. And lastly, the IRS upgraded the Get My Payment tool on their website over the weekend and are encouraging people to return to the site to find info on their stimulus checks. The new changes will provide help for millions of taxpayers with new and or expanded information, as well as providing an opportunity to add direct deposit info. with mounting claims of identity fraud. The IRS urges all of us to be on the lookout for scams. All the information that we need is available on irs.gov, so be careful of third-party vendors, emails, phone calls, or texts related to your payments. The IRS will not send unsolicited electronic communications asking people to open attachments, visit a website, or share personal or financial information. So yeah, things have felt chaotic, out of order for quite a while now, and there's not a whole lot in our lives that we haven't had to shift. But here are a few stories that have encouraged me that though things may never go back to exactly how they were, we can be hopeful about the direction that we are moving together. So now back to you, John, who will introduce our friend Andrew Hanauer and our Monday segment, #LoveYourNeighbor.
I know before we move on to Andrew and Kris, I know for our Southern brothers and sisters, life feels a whole lot more normal when the Waffle House is back open again, right?
Woo!
That's
Gotta
right.
get that Waffle
That's right.
House. Real.
Waffle House doesn't even close for the hurricanes, so that's really weird.
Exactly. It feels just as wrong on so many levels. So thanks be to God for Waffle House and a little Waffle House reopening. All right. So over to our partner, Andrew Hanauer, who, as we've told you before, runs One America Movement, an amazing front leading edge movement to bring Christians, Muslims, Jews, people of faith together to understand the ways in which we are working together, or we should and need to work together. And he is our partner in #LoveYourNeighbor, once a week segment. And thank you for being here with us, Andrew. Thank you for being here with us, Kris Hall. Over to you, Andrew. Kris.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it. I was going to make a joke about the IRS sending me an email saying they'd left their wallet in a taxi and they need me to wire them money, but I guess I'll hold off on that and move forward. I want to welcome everyone to another Love Your Neighbor Monday with American Awakening and the One America Movement, where we are trying to share stories about Americans doing good things in the midst of a pandemic, supporting each other, supporting their communities. And I'm really excited to get to introduce someone to you today who's doing that in a big way. About a year ago, our chapter in Houston began doing work around Hurricane Harvey relief. And yes, 2 years after Hurricane Harvey, communities in Houston were still struggling, still needing to be rebuilt. And so we were bringing faith leaders together in Houston to do that work. And then in October, to go to Puerto Rico and do the same work there in terms of the Hurricane Maria recovery efforts. And so we spent a week building a house, touring the island, getting a sense for what people are experiencing, what American citizens in Puerto Rico are experiencing in the midst of hurricane recovery. One of the people who's been a big part of that work is Pastor Kris Hall. I'm excited to introduce him today. He is the missions pastor at Houston Northwest Church, which is a Southern Baptist church in, wait for it, Northwest Houston. He's doing incredible work in his community, and I'm going to turn it over to him to share more about that.
Hey, Andrew, thanks so much. Yeah, it's been incredible over the last couple of weeks. First, I want to say thanks to One America and American Awakening. Appreciate you guys just stepping up and just sharing good news and being involved in so many ways. So that's very exciting. I don't know if I would call us, say we were building a house per se in Puerto Rico. I was just more carrying bricks back and forth and doing what I was told. So it was a good experience, but I mean, back to Houston, it has been a unique situation. We have really tried to focus in on what we've always focused in on, and that's trying to love your neighbors yourself, and really bringing that to the forefront of our community. And so we've been doing that with using your gifts and talents, right? What are you gifted and talented with? And seeing the Lord bless that, seeing people serve their neighbors, serve their community with what it is that they're good at. If you asked me to be an engineer, I would fail, right? If you asked me to be a teacher, it would not go well. But we have folks in our community, folks in our church that are gifted in those ways, gifted in other areas, and we're just encouraging them to go out and connect in the community that way. So it has been a unique ride, but nevertheless, it's been really exciting to see some of that stuff happen. So over the last few weeks, for example, we've been sending meals to hospitals and COVID-19 testing sites and being able to just say thanks for doing what you're doing in our community, because that's so important right now. It's those simple things that go a long way. We've got a lady in our church that, with another single mom, put together Easter baskets and delivered them on their own. And we didn't have to direct them per se, but just said, hey, we want to be able to go out and do these things. And we want to be able to serve our neighbors in that way. And it's been really fun to watch them just go out and serve those that they work, come alongside in their community. And so we've also been thinking about our international partners. We know that they are in a unique spot. We want to be able to continue to partner with them, and just the simple things. And we're thankful that we can continue to serve alongside them in those areas in light of everything that's happening around the world.
That's very cool. Thank you. Thank you so much, Pastor Kris, for sharing that. I'm interested in what have you seen so far as like the impact in your church of folks, coming together to actually just focus on other people outside. I mean, we often do like within the four walls really well, but sometimes we really struggle outside. How are people actually, what are they taking from it? How are they changing?
Yeah,
if at all?
I mean, it's unique because typically what we would do is say, hey, we're going to have an all call, come on in. We're going to do this event or program or engage in this part of the community. And we've got groups of folks coming in to participate in that. And that's awesome. It's always fun. But in this way, we really can't do that. And we wanted to just tell the community, hey, that may be a hurdle, but we're not going to quit. So, for example, back to serving meals at testing sites. We sent out an email this morning. Within an hour, we had a handful of folks say, "Hey, sign me up. I'm ready to deliver that meal to that place." And so it really hasn't stopped in that sense because we have really tried to harness in on the truth of loving your neighbor as yourself. And while it may look different, may feel different, the purpose behind it hasn't changed. And so even kids, for example, right? I mean, we're teaching telling our church, hey, let's practice quarantine, practice staying indoors. And so what does that mean for even like kids, right? How do they participate in loving your neighbor? And so there's a medical opportunity. A medical facility where we are sharing words of encouragement with our kids. They're writing letters and sending that out. And so that's been really cool. As we have worked alongside other medical groups, they have shared and expressed needs of equipment and supplies, masks, gowns, and that sort of thing. And so it's not always about what you know, it's who you know. And so one of those is a medical supply store that we're aware of, that's owned by a friend of another faith. And why would we stop? Why would we stop and serving others because of that difference there? And so we've been able to have really unique conversations with that owner of that medical supply store, even though we've had come from different faiths, still been able to share serving our neighbor with those other individuals.
That's good. I was going to jump in there. You started down a path I was interested in, because one of the things I love about One America is this like interfaith work that's happening and serving. I know you guys have done that work in Houston together in the past, but I'd love to hear any stories you have, Andrew or Kris, about just working together interfaith. And I've seen how faith groups by and large are impacted, of course, during this time, but each group has its own unique challenges. In talking to, say, a Muslim friend, they have a different set of challenges for how they're doing faith online than a Christian church would have. And so, however, if there's any stories, awesome. But I just point that out for our listeners to say, where can we work together? I love the idea of your friend who's working in medical device, or medical equipment sales, and just saying, hey, we're here together for our community. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, Andrew, you may have some other insight, but I mean, just in specific to that, what has been helpful, what I've seen personally is it's built a stronger relationship with that individual. And that's really what it's about, right? I mean, he is not seeing himself as a project or me going in to go convert him. I want him to love some Jesus, right? And that would be great. But I mean, at least in this aspect, we have been able to build a stronger relationship with one another for the love of the community. And that's been really helpful.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And I would just add, I think, one of the things that makes society strong and resilient is when you have these connections between groups that are otherwise divided by religion or race or politics or whatever. And so when a crisis hits, when something happens, you at least have a phone number, you have a connection, you have someone personally who you can reach out to. What we've seen through our work, for example, is after one of the shootings at the synagogue in Pittsburgh or Poway, churches that never had relationships with Jewish Americans before, reaching out and just saying, hey, how are you guys doing? Are you okay? Do you need anything? And maybe they don't need anything. And it's the same way now here with Corona, right? Sometimes we're so focused on our own group, and maybe that's okay in the short term. But just having that connection allows you to make that call, make that reach out and say, hey, do you guys need anything? We're here for you. And sometimes that's all it takes to really continue to build that strong relationship for the long term.
That's good.
Calvin, you were going to say something a minute ago? No?
Go ahead, JK. No, I'm just.
Yeah, so I want to say something to folks that I have a very strong suspicion that 99% of our viewers are Christian, or some high percentage. I don't know. I haven't done the survey data, but just an instinct I have. And just to say, I love what Andrew and Kris are talking about, and I love their commitments here. And just to reassure folks, if it is an open question in your mind, it is for some, it isn't for others, that what Andrew in his effort is taking on is not some sort of squishy faith positions. They all merge together because, kumbaya, let's throw our arms around each other and all that sort of thing. No, it's a recognition of healthy distinctions, healthy recognition of distinctions. And Andrew and Kris and the Christians that are leading the initiative are very, very, very sure and certain in their orthodoxy. I've heard Andrew give amazing speeches on this topic. So just being firm in your orthodoxy, knowing you love Jesus, and knowing Jesus is the way, and yet living into that fully by reaching out and loving your neighbor as yourself, which of course is the those two commandments. Is the whole thing's caught up in, right? Love God, love your neighbor. It's pretty simple, according to our Lord, right? So, Andrew, any final thoughts on that before we kick it over someplace?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, John. And I would say I've never insulted the song Kumbaya as much as I have over the last couple of years. But I would say no matter what you are, whether you're a Christian, a Democrat, a Libertarian, a Republican, whatever it is, if you want to convince other people of what you believe, start by living out your convictions, modeling it. Stop talking about it and go do it. And I think folks like Kris are doing that. We have Muslim and Jewish partners who are doing that. People from the left and right who are doing that. And I think you guys at American Awakening are really doing that. And I think that's why there's some hope in this country right now, is people doing things like that.
Well, thank you, Andrew. Really appreciate that so much. And now I'm going to kick it over to Marissa, who's going to have a little Corona, living well and Corona tip for us today.
That's right. Well, so everybody I know, friends, family, whatever, everybody who's on Netflix has been commenting over the last few weeks just about the sheer number of titles on there. It's like they know that they're in competition with everybody. So every title they got, they're throwing it up. But with lots of time, where do you even begin? I mean, I know I love film, but I love good film. So I'd rather not waste my hours on things, time I can't get back. Well, thank goodness today, the New York Times has updated its list of the top 50 films on Netflix right now. So they've rated them. They've got short descriptions. They've got links. They've got actor and director sort of inside info. We're going to post the link on the comments so you can check it out. But again, with this whole spirit of getting back on track, if you're interested, if you're a film geek like me, check out the link and get back on track with your own essential viewing. Back to you, JK.
Thanks, Marissa. Appreciate that. Hello, Kris Carter. Welcome to the screen.
Hey guys, how are you?
So before we kick it over to you,
John.
Kris, people out there that have been listening for a bit know what a film geek and drama geek I am besides. And so I watch too many long form dramas. I just love them. I just love them. And on the Netflix point yesterday, The Last Kingdom dropped season 4, which is for anybody who's out there who's a Last Kingdom fan, Uhtred of Bebbanburg. I recommend it to anybody if you want to understand the battle between the pagan Vikings and the church in England and the medieval period. It may sound dry, but it sure isn't. So I was observing yesterday as I was booting up Netflix on the big screen, saying to my wife, gosh, imagine teleporting back 10 years ago and saying, all of us are going to be doing this all the time, putting the big Netflix, thing, booting up on your screen and locking into all those offerings, as you said, Marissa. So thanks for bringing that to us.
Of course.
All right. I'd like to introduce my friends here, both on the team here and also around the country, to Kris Carter, who is a very dear old friend. I've known Kris for 3 decades now. Brutal, right, Kris? Just saying it's that long? That hurt?
Yeah, let's not talk about it.
Okay.
It's a long time.
So Kris and I became...
I got to say, 3 decades of being your buddy has made it go fast. So that's been great.
Thanks, man. Kris Carter and I became friends early on at Harvard Law School, and we've remained fast friends ever since. I'm not going to call him out for not making the prayer call on Saturday. I talked about it, organize the fantasy baseball, but he's an important fantasy baseball. He even said he was going to be there. I'm just saying, Kris.
Ooh.
He even said, "I'll be there."
I'll be there next Saturday.
Okay, all right, good enough. I will not hold my breath, but that's okay. I love you. I love you whether you show or don't show. I promise you. Promise you. So Kris Carter was once upon a time a CCM musician, is that right?
Oh, we're not going there. I mean, yeah, in the 80s, before all the people here were born. So
we can pull up pictures though. We might just do that.
There's a lot more hair, I can tell you that.
There you go. Most of our musical friends are who are coming online seem like they used to have more hair than they do now too. So it's okay, Kris. It's just one of those things for all of us. So, Kris, what do you got for us today? What do you want to bring to us? I know I begged you to do your Amazing Grace, which is country spun and wonderful and bluesy all at the same time. But what else do you have for us?
Oh, you want something else? Okay.
No. One's enough, brother. If
I'll give you 2 if you want 2. How about I start with something? It's going to be a little bit in the same vein, but you'll certainly you Southern Baptist folks will recognize it. So, or anybody from the South. So let me start with a little something here, and then we'll go into Amazing Grace. How about that, John?
That's fantastic, man.
What have I to dread? What have I to fear? On the everlasting God, I have blessed peace with my Lord so near. On the everlasting God, safe and secure, from all of us. Leading on the everlasting road. Oh, how sweet to walk in this pilgrim way, leaning on the everlasting arms. Oh, how bright the path grows from day to day, on the everlasting arms, leaning, safe and secure from all of us, leaning on the everlasting arms.
All right, Kris, thank you, man.
So good.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So we have a technical issue we've discovered here while you were singing that. And we got a little static feedback loop going. We're going to ask for you to, let's see. What's the recommendation here in terms of like, what would you ask him to mute, Pastor Joel?
Yeah, either mute your hearing us while you're playing, just mute your audio that is coming back from us, because I think you're getting a feedback loop, or just wear headphones, either one.
I will have to I'll just do the muting.
Perfect.
Okay, can you hear me?
So you can hear me, and I'm going to go ahead and play Amazing Grace, and hopefully that'll solve that problem.
There you go.
Amazing grace, oh how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, oh, but now I'm found. I was blind, but now I see. Oh, many dangers, all through toils and snares, I have already come. His grace brought us safe thus far, and grace will lead us home. then for 10,000 years, bright shining at as the sun. We've known as days for to sing our God's praise. We first
Yes.
Woo! That's good.
Amazing. Love it.
Thank you, Kris. So appreciate that. And so it's very rare that I'll suggest people that have been on our live stream to go to our pod tomorrow to listen in. But Kris was so good, and that song is so good. And the first song, "Leaning on the Everlasting Arms," my goodness, that's a throwback there. I hear you. And your bluesy, real deal rendition is awesome. But so good that it was even good over the static. But I'm telling you, Kris Carter, straight unfiltered with the good audio on the pod, will be even better than that. So please do check us out on pod as always, and subscribe, and please leave a review there. It's very helpful to us. Kris Carter, let's put up all six faces here for a minute. Kris, I'm so grateful to have you here, man. Thank you for being part of our little show. I'm grateful.
Great to be here. God bless you, John. Thank you guys for all you're doing.
Appreciate that. We love you guys out there. We love all the folks that are paying attention to us. We're here for you. We get together. We pray for you every day. You're in our hearts. You're in our minds. We're showing up every day to do this, to offer some faith, hope, love, light, and life in a tough time. And we're going to get through this. We're going to get beyond it. This too shall pass. But from here to there, we say, God bless you all, and keep fighting the good fight. Until tomorrow, the American Awakening and Daily Signs of Life Squad says goodbye. God bless you all.